400 men strain against ropes, pulling a 20-ton stone head through steaming jungle, and if they fail, their king's face will never reach the sacred plaza 60 kilometers away. This is 1200 BC in the swampy lowlands of southern Mexico, and the Olmecs, Mesoamerica's first great civilization, are doing something no one in the Americas has ever attempted, carving portraits in stone so massive they'll still terrify archaeologists 3,000 years later. But let's rewind 300 years earlier, around 1500 BC, when this story really begins. Picture the Gulf Coast of Mexico, modern Veracruz and Tabasco, a tropical paradise of meandering rivers, endless wetlands, and floodplains that turn the soil black with nutrients every rainy season. The Coatzacoalcos River cuts through this landscape like a highway, depositing volcanic ash from the nearby Tuxtlas Mountains across thousands of square kilometers, creating some of the most fertile agricultural land in ancient America. Early settlers arriving here discover something magical. You can grow crops year-round. The temperature never drops below 75 degrees C, rainfall exceeds 100–200 millimeters annually, and the soil, mixed with volcanic minerals, practically explodes with productivity. Tropical rainforests provide deer, peccaries, jaguars. The rivers teem with fish. Coastal lagoons offer endless shellfish. This isn't just a good place to live, it's agricultural paradise. And around 1500 BC, small groups of farmers start building permanent villages on raised platforms to escape seasonal flooding, constructing simple pole and thatch houses, making basic pottery, growing maize and beans. Archaeological digs at San Lorenzo, which will become the first great Olmec city, show these early settlers living modestly, their pottery simple, their tools basic stone implements. But something's brewing. By 1400 BC, population explodes. Pottery gets sophisticated, distinctive white-rimmed black ceramics that require precise firing techniques. And here's where it gets interesting. They start importing materials from hundreds of kilometers away, obsidian volcanic glass from central Mexican highlands, jade from Guatemala over 1,000 kilometers distant, basalt from the Tuxtlas Mountains. They're not just farmers anymore, they're traders, craftsmen, and they're about to build something unprecedented. The agricultural revolution transforming these swampy lowlands into civilization's cradle centers on one brilliant innovation: raised fields. Imagine vast wetlands transformed into a checkerboard of elevated planting platforms separated by drainage canals, stretching for kilometers. The Olmecs dig parallel canals through the swamps, pile the excavated mud onto platforms that stay above flood level, and suddenly they can farm year-round in areas that should be useless swamp. These raised fields, some 10 to 30 meters wide, extending hundreds of meters, provide perfect growing conditions. The canals drain excess water during heavy rains but retain moisture during dry periods, creating ideal conditions for maize, beans, squash, chili peppers. And here's the genius part. The canal mud gets scooped onto the fields as fertilizer, along with organic waste, creating soil so rich it can be cultivated continuously without degrading. Archaeological soil samples show elevated phosphorus and organic matter that accumulated over centuries. These systems were sustainable. The scale is staggering. Around San Lorenzo and La Venta, hundreds of hectares of raised fields support population densities that slash and burn farming in the jungle could never achieve. We're talking about feeding thousands of people from wetlands that other cultures would consider worthless. But constructing and maintaining these systems requires organized labor, entire communities digging canals, rebuilding platforms, coordinating planting schedules. This isn't random farming, it's centralized planning, which means someone's in charge, directing operations, organizing workers. Social hierarchy is emerging. The canals serve double duty as transportation networks, connecting agricultural areas to emerging ceremonial centers. Some extend for kilometers through swampy terrain, their banks stabilized with wooden pilings and stone reinforcements to prevent erosion. The engineering challenges are intense. You need proper gradients to prevent stagnation. You need maintenance protocols to keep channels clear. You need wooden lock systems to manage water flow. The Olmecs master all of it. Agricultural diversity provides insurance against crop failure. They're cultivating at least 20 different species, multiple maize varieties, beans, squash, cotton, cacao, root crops adapted to wetlands. Archaeological trash pits reveal they're processing maize through nixtamalization, treating corn with lime, which improves nutrition and storage. They're grinding grain with stone metates, storing surplus in ceramic vessels, creating food security that can support specialized craftsmen who don't farm. And speaking of specialists, around 1200 BC, something extraordinary happens at San Lorenzo. San Lorenzo sits on a natural plateau, rising 50 meters above surrounding floodplains, commanding views across the river valley while staying safe from seasonal flooding. But the natural hill isn't good enough for Olmec ambitions. Between 1200 and 900 BC, they transform this site into Mesoamerica's first major urban center through one of history's most remarkable engineering projects, moving 200,000 cubic meters of dirt to create artificial terraces, platforms, and courtyards across 700 hectares. Picture this: thousands of workers carrying baskets of earth, dumping load after load to build elevated surfaces for temples and elite residences. But this requires centralized direction, administrative systems coordinating labor, feeding crews, planning construction. Someone's organizing this operation, and whoever they are, they wield unprecedented power. The modified plateau features ceremonial plazas, elite residential compounds, and specialized workshop areas connected by stone-paved causeways. The main ceremonial precinct occupies the highest ground. Stepped platforms built from carefully fitted stone blocks and earth fill, reaching heights of 15 meters, providing foundations for wooden temples that rotted away centuries ago but once dominated the skyline. Urban planning here is sophisticated. Designers create interconnected spaces that channel movement while emphasizing hierarchy. Broad causeways link major ceremonial areas, narrower paths access residential and workshop zones. Sightlines are carefully calculated. You approach the ceremonial center along routes designed to showcase power and impress visitors. And then there are the heads, the colossal basalt heads that make Olmec civilization unforgettable. Between 1200 and 900 BC, Olmec sculptors create 17 massive stone portraits at San Lorenzo, ranging from 1.5 to 3.4 meters tall, weighing between 6 and 50 tons. Each displays unique facial features, different nose shapes, lip thickness, eye configurations, suggesting they represent specific individuals, probably rulers. They wear elaborate headdresses with complex bands, knots, decorative elements indicating rank or office. Some show ear ornaments, others display evidence of deliberate mutilation, possibly when power changed hands. But here's what's truly staggering. The basalt comes from quarries in the Colossal Mountains, 60 kilometers away. Moving 20-ton boulders across dense tropical forest, crossing rivers, traversing swamps. This is one of ancient history's most impressive logistical achievements. Let me paint the picture of how they did it. The Cerro Tintepec quarries in the Colossal Mountains become industrial extraction zones where hundreds of workers employ sophisticated techniques to split massive basalt boulders from volcanic bedrock. Olmec quarrymen read natural fracture patterns in the stone. They can predict how huge blocks will break when stressed. They drive wooden wedges into natural cracks, then soak the wedges with water. The wood expands, creating pressure that splits boulders along predetermined lines. Archaeological evidence includes hundreds of wedge holes, stone hammers weighing up to 15 kilograms, and fire-cracked rocks indicating they use thermal shock, heating stone, then rapidly cooling it, to weaken resistant sections. Master sculptors possess extraordinary ability. They can visualize the finished portrait within irregular basalt boulders, while the stones still at the quarry, accounting for internal flaws, color variations, structural weaknesses. This expertise requires decades of training, apprenticeship systems transmitting knowledge across generations. Once extracted, the real challenge begins: transportation. Experimental archaeology suggests teams of 200 to 400 workers move 20-ton blocks using wooden rollers, rope systems, and coordinated pulling. They construct temporary roadways, wooden planks laid over log foundations, creating stable surfaces. Under optimal conditions, they advance 2 to 3 kilometers per day. But that's optimal. Dense tropical forest requires clearing paths. Steep ravines need temporary bridges. River crossings demand pontoon systems. Multiple canoes lashed together with wooden platforms, carefully calculated for buoyancy and load distribution. Archaeological evidence shows massive wooden posts driven into riverbanks, stone anchoring systems for floating bridges. Imagine the scene: hundreds of workers pulling in rhythm, chanters keeping time, the massive stone inching forward, engineers calculating every move. One mistake and months of work ends with a crushed sculpture at the bottom of a ravine. The journey from quarry to San Lorenzo takes weeks, maybe months. Feeding these work crews, coordinating movements, maintaining equipment, this demonstrates organizational sophistication rivaling any ancient civilization. And we haven't even started carving yet. Once the basalt block reaches San Lorenzo, the real artistry begins. Basalt is one of the hardest stones available. Carving it with stone and wooden tools requires patience, skill, and techniques that took generations to perfect. Olmec sculptors use stone hammers for initial rough shaping, then progressively finer abrasive stones for detail work. They grind away excess material using volcanic rock for coarse work, fine-grained sandstone for final surfaces. The smooth, curved surfaces characterizing these heads require systematic tool management and quality control. Creating uniform texture across a sculpture over 3 meters tall demands organized workshop systems where master carvers direct apprentices in specialized tasks. The facial features display anatomical precision, suggesting sculptors work from specific models or possess detailed knowledge of individual physiology. Each head is unique: different eye shapes, nose configurations, lip thickness, facial proportions, creating distinctive portraits rather than generic representations. The technical execution requires specialized carving tools, chisels made from jade, and other tough materials that maintain sharp edges through extended use. But the elaborate headdresses represent the sculpture's most complex achievement. Intricate arrangements of bands, knots, tassels, decorative elements require extraordinary precision, carving three-dimensional forms with undercuts, projecting elements, fine details in stone. This hard demonstrates complete mastery. These headdresses display consistent iconographic elements, suggesting specific ranks or ceremonial roles. Once completed, the heads are positioned at strategic locations within the San Lorenzo complex. Several stand along main causeways where visitors approaching the ceremonial center see them from distance, massive stone faces radiating power and authority. Others occupy elite residential compounds, possibly serving as symbols of ancestral presence. But around 900 BC, something goes wrong at San Lorenzo. The site that dominated Olmec civilization for 300 years suddenly faces catastrophe, and the response is both careful and desperate. Archaeological excavations at San Lorenzo reveal a destruction layer dating to approximately 900 BC, containing burned building debris, scattered human remains, abandoned household goods, telling stories of sudden, violent attack. The famous Megaron II, the Great Audience Hall, shows signs of deliberate burning. Charred roof timbers collapsed onto floors littered with broken pottery and scattered bronze objects. But here's what's strange: the colossal heads aren't destroyed, they're carefully buried. Olmec workers excavate special pits along the site, and systematically into the massive sculptures, often accompanied by jade offerings and ceramic vessels. These aren't disposal pits, they're monument cemeteries following established religious protocols, even as political authority collapses. The careful positioning of sculptures within burial contexts, the accompanying offerings, this suggests ritual termination ceremonies rather than random destruction. What happened? We don't know for certain. Internal conflicts between competing elite factions, external attack, environmental crisis? The evidence is ambiguous, but San Lorenzo's decline creates an opportunity for a new center to rise. About 100 kilometers east, on an island in the coastal swamps of Tabasco, Venta is positioning itself to become the greatest Olmec city of all. Venta occupies a natural island roughly 5 kilometers long, surrounded by seasonally flooded marshlands, creating a natural moat. The Tonelá River system provides navigable channels connecting Venta to highland regions and coastal trade networks, perfect for controlling commerce across vast distances. Between 900 and 400 BC, Venta's inhabitants undertake landscape modifications that make San Lorenzo's earthworks look modest, moving 800,000 cubic meters of earth and stone to create platforms, plazas, causeways defining the ceremonial core. But Venta's crowning achievement isn't just big, it's architecturally revolutionary. Rising 34 meters above the surrounding plaza, the fluted pyramid features 10 alternating ridges and furrows, creating an appearance unique in Mesoamerican architecture. Its base measures 128 meters in diameter, making it one of the largest structures built in Mesoamerica during the first millennium BC, and the engineering behind it is extraordinary. Building a 34-meter pyramid in coastal swamps presents engineering challenges that would defeat most ancient civilizations. The ground is unstable, clay and waterlogged sediments that can't support massive weight. Venta's builders solve this by driving thousands of wooden piles deep into underlying deposits, creating a stable foundation. Then they construct the pyramid using alternating layers of different colored clays. The colors aren't just decorative, they provide structural integrity. The distinctive fluting is achieved through careful clay placement and internal drainage channels, preventing water accumulation and structural failure. Ground-penetrating radar reveals the pyramid contains multiple construction phases spanning centuries. The earliest phase dates to approximately 800 BC, with major additions continuing until around 400 BC. Each construction episode involves placing offerings and ritual deposits, jade objects, ceramic vessels, sanctifying the structure and maintaining its spiritual power. The ceremonial complex extends far beyond the central pyramid. Complex A, located north of the pyramid, features a rectangular plaza, 150 by 200 meters, surrounded by low platforms supporting wooden temples and elite residences. The plaza's carefully leveled surface uses multiple layers of colored clays and sands, creating a mosaic pattern visible from surrounding structures. The architectural planning demonstrates unprecedented attention to astronomical alignments. The site's main axis follows a precise north-south orientation, aligning with stellar events, while secondary alignments correspond to solar and lunar cycles, determining ceremony timing. This requires detailed astronomical observations and complex calculations, indicating specialized priest astronomers. But the real treasures at Venta lie beneath the surface. In 1955, archaeologists discover Tomb A within Complex A, and what they find inside revolutionizes understanding of Olmec wealth and artistry. The tomb consists of a rectangular chamber measuring 7 by 4 meters, constructed from massive basalt columns supporting a roof of stone slabs weighing over 20 tons. The primary burial features an individual interred with a complete jade regalia, and the centerpiece is breathtaking. The jade mosaic mask found in Tomb A consists of over 200 individual jade pieces carefully shaped and fitted together to create a supernatural face with were-jaguar characteristics. The transformation imagery central to Olmec religion. Creating this mask represents months, maybe years, of patient work by master craftsmen. Each jade piece must be precisely cut and drilled to fit together without gaps, creating a seamless surface, transforming the wearer into a supernatural being. The technical precision is extraordinary, but jade itself tells a story. The blue-green stone comes from the Motagua Valley of Guatemala, over 1,000 kilometers away. Transporting raw jade requires diplomatic relationships, trade agreements, maybe even territorial control. The grave goods in Tomb A include jade from multiple sources across Mesoamerica, Guatemala, Honduras, possibly Costa Rica, indicating Venta's rulers command exotic materials from vast distances. The ceramic vessels accompanying the burials include some of the finest pottery ever discovered in Mesoamerica. One extraordinary vessel displays a continuous frieze, showing human figures in elaborate costumes performing what appears to be a ritual dance. The figures wear distinctive headdresses featuring feathered serpent motifs and carry ritual implements including bloodletting tools and incense burners. But Venta's most unique architectural feature isn't above ground, it's the serpentine pavements, constructed from thousands of carefully shaped serpentine blocks arranged in geometric patterns. These elaborate mosaic floors cover areas up to 200 square meters within ceremonial precincts. The serpentine, a green metamorphic rock from the Tuxtlas Mountains, is selected for aesthetic qualities and symbolic associations with water and fertility. The most famous pavement features an abstract jaguar mask design measuring 4.5 by 6 meters, composed of approximately 485 individual blocks, precisely cut and fitted together. The design incorporates characteristic were-jaguar facial features, cleft head, snarling mouth, flame eyebrow motifs. And here's the strange part. After completion, the pavement is carefully buried beneath colored clay layers, suggesting it serves ritual rather than practical functions. Why create something so elaborate just to bury it? Because Olmec religion operates on principles we're only beginning to understand, centered on transformation, supernatural power, and the strange beings that haunt their art. Olmec religious beliefs center on transformation, the idea that powerful individuals can assume supernatural characteristics, becoming something between human and animal. The were-jaguar figures appearing across Olmec art combine human bodies with jaguar facial features, prominent canine teeth, flared nostrils, downturned snarling mouths. These aren't just decorative, they represent fundamental beliefs about spiritual power and elite authority. Jaguars are the apex predators of Mesoamerican tropical forests, possessing strength, stealth, nocturnal hunting abilities, inspiring both fear and respect. Associating rulers with jaguar characteristics suggests they possess supernatural powers, enabling them to move between different realms of existence: human world, spirit world, underworld. The babyface figurines carved from finest quality jade display pronounced were-jaguar features in miniaturized form, infantile body proportions combined with cleft heads, snarling mouths, feline faces. These may represent divine beings or transformed humans in their most powerful state. Creating these jade figurines requires extraordinary skill. Jade rates 6.5 to 7 on the Mohs hardness scale, making it nearly impossible to cut with ordinary stone tools. Olmec jade workers develop techniques using abrasive slurries containing crushed quartz and garnet, slowly grinding away surfaces with wooden tools and bamboo saws. Drilling holes for suspension requires hollow reed drills charged with abrasives, rotating continuously for hours to penetrate resistant stone. A single jade pendant might take months to complete. But jade isn't just valuable, it's sacred. When struck, high-quality jade produces a distinctive ringing tone that Olmec religious specialists interpret as the voice of supernatural beings. This makes jade objects essential for ritual performances. Beyond were-jaguars, Olmec iconography includes feathered serpent motifs that will become central to later Mesoamerican religions. Bird imagery, particularly harpy eagles and large raptors, represents aerial dominance and the ability to move between earthly and celestial realms. Olmec artists frequently depict human figures wearing elaborate feathered costumes, transforming them into bird-like beings. But transformation isn't just artistic symbolism, it's enacted through rituals involving bloodletting, offerings, and possibly psychoactive substances. Archaeological evidence reveals Olmec religious practices involving bloodletting, deliberate shedding of blood as offerings to supernatural forces. Excavations uncover obsidian blades with razor-sharp edges, stingray spines shaped and sharpened for piercing skin, and specialized ceramic vessels apparently used for collecting blood. The technical sophistication of these implements demonstrates specialized production for religious purposes. Stingray spines, obtained from Gulf Coast waters, are carefully prepared and modified for use as bloodletting instruments. These marine products are shaped and sharpened to create effective piercing tools, penetrating skin with minimal trauma. Finding these implements hundreds of kilometers inland demonstrates the importance of bloodletting rituals and the extensive trade networks required to obtain appropriate materials. Ritual caching practices at Venta establish patterns continuing throughout Mesoamerican civilizations for over 2 millennia. Cache 7 at San Lorenzo contains an extraordinary assemblage: 16 jade and serpentine figurines, 6 ceremonial axes, numerous beads and ornaments arranged in specific patterns suggesting ritual significance. The figurines are positioned facing a central axis, largest and most elaborate pieces occupying positions of prominence. The deliberate burial of these valuable objects indicates ceremonial purposes rather than wealth accumulation. Offering 4 at Venta contains 16 jade and serpentine figurines arranged to depict what appears to be a ritual scene or mythological narrative. The figurines, 16 to 19 centimeters tall, are positioned in a semicircle facing 6 jade celts arranged vertically, creating a symbolic forest or sacred grove. The precise positioning and careful burial beneath colored sand layers indicate they serve important ceremonial functions related to site dedication or renewal rituals. Evidence suggests ritual use of psychoactive substances. Ceramic vessels with distinctive forms and decorative programs appear designed for preparing and consuming liquid substances, possibly fermented beverages or plant-based preparations, inducing altered states of consciousness. The iconography associated with these vessels includes supernatural imagery suggesting religious rather than secular contexts, but all these religious practices, technological achievements, and political power depend on something fundamental: the vast trade networks connecting Venta to resources spanning the length and breadth of Mesoamerica. Imagine merchant expeditions setting out from Venta, canoes loaded with goods paddling up river systems toward highland sources of obsidian, jade, magnetite. These aren't casual trading trips, they're systematic procurement operations requiring detailed knowledge of travel routes, diplomatic relationships, and the ability to operate across diverse cultural boundaries. The obsidian trade is clearly documented through chemical sourcing studies. The volcanic glass from specific Mexican highland sources reaches Olmec sites in quantities far exceeding local needs. The Pachuca obsidian source in central Mexico provides distinctive green volcanic glass appearing in Olmec context beginning around 1000 BC, while sources in the trans-Mexican volcanic belt supply grey and black varieties. At Venta, archaeologists recover over 50,000 obsidian artifacts representing materials from at least 6 different geological sources, with individual workshops containing blade cores from single quarrying episodes at distant sources. This suggests Olmec merchants maintain regular contact with highland suppliers and possess organizational capabilities for coordinating large-scale material transfers. The jade trade extends even further. The Motagua Valley in Guatemala, over 1,000 kilometers southeast, provides the finest jadeite deposits in Mesoamerica. Successful exploitation requires diplomatic relationships, territorial agreements, possibly direct political control. Recent investigations in the Motagua Valley reveal organized extraction operations that may have been controlled by Olmec interests. Quarrying sites show systematic exploitation, standardized tools, waste disposal, suggesting coordinated production rather than opportunistic gathering. The presence of Olmec-style ceramics in these contexts indicates direct contact between Olmec specialists and jade source communities. The magnetite trade supplies Olmec craftsmen with materials for creating polished mirrors, one of their most sophisticated technological achievements. These mirrors, created through patient grinding and polishing of iron oxide nodules, serve both practical and ritual functions. The production sequence involves initial shaping with stone hammers, extended grinding with progressively finer abrasives, final polishing with organic compounds, creating reflective surfaces comparable to modern glass. But trade isn't just about raw materials, it's about spreading Olmec cultural influence across Mesoamerica. Olmec-style artifacts appear at sites throughout Mexico and Central America, sometimes over 1,000 kilometers from the nearest major Olmec center. This widespread distribution indicates Olmec merchants and craftsmen operate within commercial networks encompassing virtually every major region of Mesoamerica. At Chalcatzingo in central Mexico, monumental relief sculptures display characteristic Olmec iconographic motifs executed in local stone by craftsmen who clearly studied Olmec artistic traditions. Monument 1 depicts a human figure seated within a stylized cave mouth decorated with were-jaguar motifs. The technical execution demonstrates sophisticated understanding of Olmec artistic conventions while adapting them to local materials. Finding such elaborate Olmec-style monuments over 500 kilometers from the Gulf Coast indicates the far-reaching influence of Olmec religious and artistic traditions. At Teopantecuanitlan in Guerrero, architectural features include sunken courtyards and platform arrangements closely paralleling those at major Olmec centers. Associated artifacts contain numerous objects displaying Olmec stylistic elements. The adoption of these architectural forms suggests urban planning concepts influence community organization across diverse settings. But what are the Olmecs actually trading? Beyond raw materials, they're exporting finished goods, jade ornaments, obsidian blades, elaborate ceramics, possibly textiles, and cacao. Cacao, chocolate, likely plays a crucial role in Olmec commercial networks. The tropical lowland environment provides ideal growing conditions, and linguistic evidence suggests the word cacao derives from Proto-Mix Zoquean languages spoken in the Olmec heartland. The Olmecs may have been first to systematically cultivate and process cacao for consumption, developing techniques for fermenting, drying, and preparing beans into beverages, then sharing this knowledge through trade networks. Marine shell trade connects Olmec centers to both Pacific and Atlantic coasts. Spondylus shells from Pacific waters appear regularly in Olmec contexts, often carved into elaborate ornaments or ceremonial implements. The bright orange and red colors make them valuable for creating objects associated with fire, blood, supernatural transformation. But around 400 BC, the world supporting this vast commercial empire starts falling apart. Climate data reconstructed from sediment cores reveals the Gulf Coast lowlands experienced significant environmental changes during the late 1st millennium BC, disrupting agricultural systems supporting dense populations. Sediment cores from lake beds show increased volcanic activity in the Tuxtlas Mountains, depositing ash layers across agricultural areas. Volcanic eruptions dated to approximately 400–300 BC create temporary lakes, redirect river courses, flood established field systems, force populations to relocate. The raised field complexes sustaining Olmec agricultural productivity for centuries become increasingly difficult to maintain as changing precipitation patterns and river behavior alter delicate water management systems. Archaeological investigations at field sites near San Lorenzo reveal evidence for hasty abandonment around 350 BC, agricultural tools left scattered across planting surfaces, maintenance work incomplete on drainage channels, soil samples show elevated volcanic ash levels and altered chemical compositions, reducing crop yields, making continued cultivation economically unfeasible. River system modifications create additional challenges. The Coatzacoalcos River, primary commercial artery connecting Olmec centers to highland resources, undergoes channel changes creating new sandbars and navigation hazards. Riverside settlements relocate away from traditional river ports, abandoning elaborate dock facilities and warehouse complexes supporting commercial activities for centuries. The disruption of agricultural systems and transportation networks creates cascading effects throughout Olmec society, undermining economic foundations, supporting specialized craft production and monumental construction. Workshop areas at major centers show reduced activity levels and simplified production procedures, suggesting declining access to raw materials and skilled craftsmen. Jade carving workshops at Venta contain deposits indicating work ceased abruptly around 350 BC, partially completed ornaments abandoned alongside specialized tools, and raw materials representing significant investments. Internal conflicts within Olmec society intensify during this period of environmental stress as competing elite factions struggle to maintain control over diminishing resources and populations. Archaeological evidence for violence includes deliberate monument destruction, defensive modifications to residential compounds, and mass burial sites suggesting periodic warfare or civil unrest. And then comes the ritual that symbolizes everything falling apart, the careful burial of the colossal heads. Systematic burial of colossal heads at San Lorenzo follows patterns suggesting organized campaigns rather than random destruction. The massive sculptures are interred in specially excavated pits, along with other monumental sculptures, creating what archaeologists call monument cemeteries. But here's the telling detail. Even as political authority collapses, the burial follows established religious protocols. Sculptures are carefully positioned within pits, accompanied by jade offerings and ceramic vessels. This isn't vandalism, it's ritual termination, possibly reflecting changes in political power, but maintaining religious traditions even in crisis. Defensive earthworks constructed around residential areas provide direct evidence for increased warfare. Investigations at Venta reveal ditches and embankments enclosing the ceremonial core and elite residential areas, creating fortified zones defendable against attacks. Construction requires substantial labor, diverting resources from other activities, indicating security concerns have become paramount. Population dispersal accelerates during the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC. Surveys throughout Olmec territory reveal establishment of new settlements in previously unoccupied areas, highland valleys, coastal zones offering different resources and environmental conditions. These new communities feature simplified architectural forms and reduced material culture, suggesting adaptation to limited resources. The abandonment process follows different patterns at different sites. San Lorenzo experiences relatively rapid depopulation between 350–300 BC, with most residential areas showing hasty abandonment, scattered household goods, broken pottery, debris suggesting residents departed quickly without careful packing. Venta's decline occurs more gradually from 400–100 BC. Evidence suggests reduced populations continue occupying portions of the site while maintaining simplified ceremonial activities. Certain platforms continue receiving offerings and maintenance, even as other portions are abandoned to vegetation growth and structural decay. core religious functions persist even as political and economic systems collapse. But here's the remarkable thing. Olmec civilization doesn't simply disappear. It transforms, disperses, and spreads its innovations across Mesoamerica in ways that will shape the region for 2 millennia. Communities located along the margins of Olmec territory maintain modified versions of characteristic artistic styles, religious practices, and technological traditions while adapting them to local conditions. At sites in Chiapas, Oaxaca, and central Mexico, where jaguar iconography persists, jade carving continues, ceremonial architecture clearly derives from Olmec prototypes. Regional variations reflect different degrees of contact with Olmec heartland populations. Communities with strong trade relationships maintain more elaborate versions of traditional forms, while isolated populations develop simplified adaptations, retaining essential symbolic elements while eliminating complex technical requirements. The Zapotec civilization developing in the Oaxaca Valley during this period incorporates Olmec-derived writing systems, calendrical concepts, and religious iconography while developing distinctive architectural styles and political organizations adapted to highland conditions. Archaeological evidence from Monte Alba reveals clear connections to Olmec traditions alongside innovations reflecting independent development. Maya artistic traditions emerging during the late 1st millennium BC incorporate Olmec-derived elements including supernatural transformation themes, elite portraiture conventions, and ceremonial regalia designs while developing distinctive stylistic characteristics. The raised field systems pioneered by Olmec engineers provide templates for intensive cultivation techniques, enabling later civilizations to support dense populations. In the Maya lands, similar wetland management techniques support great cities like Tikal, Calakmul, and Caracol during the Classic period. Archaeological investigations in the Candelaria River basin reveal extensive raised field systems covering over 200 square kilometers, employing construction techniques and water management principles directly derived from Olmec prototypes. The Chinampas agriculture, later characterizing the Valley of Mexico, shows equally clear connections to Olmec raised field systems adapted to highland lake environments. But perhaps the Olmec's greatest legacy is calendrical, the mathematical and astronomical systems they developed. The bar and dot numerical notation first appearing on Olmec monuments becomes the standard mathematical recording system throughout Mesoamerica, employed by Maya, Zapotec, and Central Mexican civilizations for recording dates, quantities, and astronomical calculations. Monument 19 at San Lorenzo provides one of the clearest examples of early Mesoamerican calendar notation, featuring carved glyphs recording specific dates. The consistency of this numerical system across diverse cultural and linguistic boundaries demonstrates the fundamental importance of Olmec mathematical innovations. The long count calendar system enabling Mesoamerican astronomers to record historical dates and predict astronomical events employs computational methods and observational techniques originating in Olmec contexts. Recent research reveals the earliest long count inscriptions from sites like Chiapa de Corzo and Tres Zapotes employ calendrical concepts, providing direct foundations for later Maya chronological systems. Sophistication of these early records indicates Olmec populations developed advanced astronomical knowledge, influencing Mesoamerican intellectual traditions for centuries. Architectural orientations at major Olmec sites demonstrate careful attention to astronomical alignments connecting earthly ceremonial activities to celestial events. The main axis at Venta follows precise north-south orientation aligning with stellar phenomena, while secondary alignments correspond to solar positions at important dates in the agricultural calendar. These alignments require systematic observations conducted over extended periods by specialists possessing detailed knowledge of celestial mechanics. Writing systems emerging throughout Mesoamerica during the late 1st millennium BC show varying degrees of connection to symbolic conventions established in Olmec contexts. While the extent of direct influence remains debated, iconographic elements and compositional principles characterizing early Mesoamerican scripts clearly incorporate concepts originating in Olmec artistic traditions. Maya hieroglyphic writing, the most fully developed script in ancient America, employs logographic and syllabic principles that may have been influenced by earlier symbolic systems. Recent discoveries at sites like San Bartolo reveal early Maya texts incorporating iconographic elements clearly derived from Olmec artistic traditions while employing linguistic principles adapted to Maya languages. But the Olmec's influence extends beyond intellectual achievements to everyday technologies that transform Mesoamerican life. Jade carving techniques developed by Olmec craftsmen provide foundations for lapidary traditions flourishing among Maya, Zapotec, and Central Mexican populations. Maya jade carving workshops at sites like Canquen in Guatemala employ cutting, drilling, and polishing techniques clearly derived from Olmec prototypes while incorporating innovations enabling creation of objects with unprecedented sophistication. Archaeological investigations reveal complete production sequences demonstrating mastery of techniques originally developed by Olmec craftsmen while showing adaptations reflecting centuries of refinement. Obsidian blade technology, reaching sophisticated levels at Olmec centers, influences stone tool production throughout Mesoamerica as technical knowledge spreads through networks of itinerant craftsmen. Maya obsidian workshops at sites like Colha in Belize produce prismatic blades using core preparation and flaking techniques, showing clear connections to methods developed at Olmec centers while incorporating innovations maximizing raw material efficiency. Ceramic production techniques perfected by Olmec potters provide foundations for pottery traditions characterizing later Mesoamerican civilizations. Firing methods creating distinctive ceramic styles influence pottery production throughout Mexico and Central America, with regional workshops developing variations maintaining essential technical principles while incorporating local innovations. The hydraulic engineering achievements establishing Olmec civilization, canal systems, drainage networks, water management infrastructure influence urban planning across Mesoamerica. The carefully designed water control systems at Olmec centers provide models adapted for use in highland valleys and coastal plains where growing populations require sophisticated infrastructure. Modern archaeological discoveries continue revealing new aspects of Olmec civilization. Recent excavations at El Manatí in Veracruz uncover extraordinary assemblages of organic materials. Waterlogged conditions preserve wooden sculptures, rubber balls, textile fragments that haven't survived elsewhere, revealing aspects of Olmec material culture previously unknown. Wooden sculptures demonstrate sophisticated carving techniques and artistic traditions complementing better-known stone sculpture while serving different functions. LiDAR surveys throughout former Olmec territory reveal extensive settlement patterns and landscape modifications demonstrating true scale and complexity. Remote sensing identifies hundreds of previously unknown sites, residential areas, agricultural facilities, ceremonial centers, indicating regional populations far exceeding earlier estimates. Underwater archaeology in the Gulf of Mexico begins revealing coastal settlements and harbor facilities submerged by rising sea levels since the Olmec period. Investigations uncover evidence for sophisticated maritime technologies and coastal trade networks connecting Olmec centers to Caribbean and Central American populations through sea routes complementing overland trade. Advances in chemical analysis enable researchers to trace raw material sources with unprecedented precision. Neutron activation analysis of Olmec ceramics identifies clay sources used by potters at different sites, demonstrating production and distribution patterns reflecting complex economic relationships. Isotopic analysis of jade objects confirms materials originated from specific Guatemalan sources while revealing previously unknown procurement routes and processing centers. Contemporary significance of Olmec heritage for modern Mexican identity reflects growing recognition of their fundamental contributions to Mesoamerican civilization. Educational programs and museum exhibitions throughout Mexico emphasize Olmec achievements in art, technology, and social organization, while connecting their innovations to cultural traditions characterizing Mexican society. Indigenous communities in the Gulf Coast region maintain cultural practices and traditional knowledge showing connections to Olmec antecedents. Contemporary Mix and Zoque populations, whose languages belong to families spoken in the Olmec heartland, preserve agricultural techniques, religious concepts, and artistic traditions, potentially representing continuities extending back over 2 millennia. The colossal heads have become powerful symbols of Mexican cultural identity, representing sophisticated achievements of indigenous populations preceding European colonization. These sculptures appear on currency, government buildings, and cultural institutions throughout Mexico while serving as focal points for discussions about indigenous rights and cultural preservation. Yet mysteries remain. The ultimate origins of Olmec populations remain unclear despite decades of archaeological and linguistic research. Recent genetic studies of ancient DNA recovered from Olmec sites provide limited results due to poor preservation in tropical environments, though ongoing research may eventually reveal population relationships and migration patterns. The nature of Olmec writing systems remains controversial. Scholars continue debating whether symbolic elements found on monuments represent true writing or more limited visual communication. The decipherment of Olmec symbols, if they represent writing, would revolutionize understanding of political organization, religious beliefs, and historical development. As archaeological research expands understanding of Olmec civilization, their legacy as Mesoamerica's foundational culture becomes increasingly apparent. From raised agricultural fields sustaining Maya cities to calendrical systems enabling precise astronomical observations, from artistic traditions inspiring centuries of creative expression to urban planning concepts organizing complex societies, Olmec achievements provide essential foundations for remarkable cultural development characterizing Mesoamerica for over 2 millennia. Their transformation from a regional culture in Gulf Coast lowlands into the intellectual and technological wellspring of an entire civilization represents one of history's most significant cultural developments. The question, who were the Olmecs, finds answers not just in colossal stone heads and jade masks, but in the countless innovations they contributed to subsequent civilizations. When Maya astronomers calculate eclipse cycles with stunning accuracy, they're using mathematical systems the Olmecs pioneered. When Aztec engineers build chinampas, floating gardens in Lake Texcoco, they're adapting agricultural techniques the Olmecs perfected centuries earlier. When modern archaeologists uncover elaborate urban planning at Teotihuacan, they're seeing organizational concepts first implemented at San Lorenzo and La Venta. The Olmecs didn't simply build a civilization, they built the template for all Mesoamerican civilizations that followed. Their genius lay not in isolated achievements, but in creating integrated systems, agricultural innovation supporting specialized craftsmen, trade networks distributing both goods and ideas, religious concepts legitimizing political authority, technological mastery enabling monumental expression. This synthetic approach to cultural development, combining practical innovation with artistic sophistication, economic organization with religious fervor, established patterns that would define Mesoamerican civilization until the Spanish conquest. Consider the journey, from simple farming villages around 1500 BC to sophisticated urban centers by 1200 BC, from local craft production to hemispheric trade networks, from basic religious practices to complex cosmological systems influencing cultures for 2,000 years. The Olmecs accomplished in a few centuries what took other civilizations millennia. And they did it in one of the world's most challenging environments, steaming tropical lowlands where most civilizations would have failed. The hydraulic engineering enabling Olmec civilization deserves special recognition. The raised field systems, drainage networks, canal systems, these weren't just clever adaptations to wetland environments, they were revolutionary technologies transforming supposedly useless swamps into the most productive agricultural landscapes in Mesoamerica. The engineering sophistication required to design, construct, and maintain these systems over centuries demonstrates intellectual capabilities rivaling any ancient civilization. Modern engineers examining Olmec drainage systems at San Lorenzo marvel at the precision. Over 170 individual features, including underground conduits constructed from fitted basalt blocks, surface channels with calculated gradients, settling basins, flow regulators. These systems remained functional for centuries because Olmec engineers understood hydraulic principles we're only now fully appreciating. The stone transportation achievements represent another pinnacle of Olmec ingenuity. Moving 50-ton basalt blocks 60 kilometers through dense jungle, across rivers, over swamps, this required not just muscle power, but sophisticated understanding of physics, logistics, and organizational management. The temporary roadways, pontoon bridges, ramp systems needed to accomplish these feats demonstrate problem-solving abilities that make modern engineers shake their heads in admiration. Consider the intellectual achievement behind jade carving. Olmec craftsmen working with Stone Age tools created objects requiring modern lapidaries using diamond-tipped power tools months to replicate. The patience, skill, and technical knowledge necessary to grind jade, one of Earth's hardest minerals, into intricate figurines, elaborate masks, and delicate ornaments represents mastery that took generations to develop and can never be fully replicated because the knowledge died with the craftsman. The artistic achievement is equally profound. The colossal heads aren't just impressive for their size, they're remarkable for their individuality, their anatomical precision, their sophisticated understanding of proportion and form. These aren't generic royal portraits, they're distinctive individuals captured in stone with a realism that wouldn't be matched in Mesoamerica for another 1,000 years. The sculptors possessed abilities that placed them among history's greatest artists. Religious innovations prove equally significant. The were-jaguar transformation complex, the feathered serpent deity, the emphasis on bloodletting and astronomical observation, these concepts originating in Olmec contexts would dominate Mesoamerican religious thought until the Spanish conquest. The calendrical and mathematical systems represent perhaps the Olmecs' most enduring intellectual legacy. The bar and dot notation, the 260-day ritual calendar, the long count dating system, these innovations enabled precise timekeeping, astronomical prediction, and historical record-keeping that would characterize all subsequent Mesoamerican civilizations. The mathematical sophistication required to develop these systems indicates Olmec populations possessed intellectual capabilities we're only beginning to appreciate fully. Think about the astronomical knowledge necessary to align major architectural features to celestial phenomena. Olmec priest astronomers must have conducted systematic observations over decades, recording positions of stars, sun, moon, and planets, then performing complex calculations to predict future positions and align buildings accordingly. But this represents scientific methodology comparable to contemporary developments in Bronze Age Egypt and Mesopotamia. The trade networks establishing during Olmec florescence created economic and cultural connections spanning 2,000 kilometers, from central Mexico to Honduras, from Pacific to Atlantic coasts. These weren't casual exchange relationships, but systematic commercial operations requiring diplomatic agreements, knowledge of travel routes, and ability to operate across diverse cultural and linguistic boundaries. Olmec merchants were international traders operating on a scale that wouldn't be matched in Mesoamerica for another millennium. The social organization supporting these achievements indicates political sophistication, enabling coordination of thousands of individuals in complex, specialized roles. Olmec rulers commanded labor forces building monumental architecture, coordinated agricultural production across extensive territories, managed trade relationships with distant populations, and sponsored craft specialists producing luxury goods. This required administrative systems, record-keeping, and organizational capabilities that marked the transition from chiefdoms to states. But perhaps most importantly, the Olmecs demonstrated something fundamental about human cultural development. Sophisticated civilization can emerge in tropical lowland environments once thought unsuitable for complex societies. Before Olmec discoveries, scholars assumed great civilizations required temperate climates, major rivers, specific environmental conditions. The Olmecs proved that human ingenuity, given the right combination of environmental opportunities and cultural innovation, can create complexity anywhere. The decline narrative often focuses on environmental catastrophe and social collapse, but that's only part of the story. Yes, volcanic eruptions, river changes, and resource depletion created crises. Yes, political fragmentation and warfare accelerated abandonment. But what's remarkable isn't the collapse, it's the transformation and persistence of Olmec achievements through their successors. When Olmec populations dispersed from traditional heartland areas, they didn't simply disappear. They carried knowledge, traditions, technologies to new regions where they founded communities, established workshops, and continued practicing modified versions of traditional crafts. Olmec jade carvers working in Oaxaca, Olmec potters establishing workshops in Maya lands, Olmec merchants maintaining trade routes. These individuals served as cultural transmission vectors, spreading innovations across Mesoamerica. The Epi-Olmec culture emerging in the Isthmus of Tehuantepec during the 2nd and 1st centuries BC represents one example of this synthetic process. Communities at sites like Tres Zapotes maintain simplified versions of traditional ceremonial architecture while developing new artistic expressions and political organizations. Monuments erected employ traditional Olmec sculptural techniques and iconographic elements while incorporating textual inscriptions recording historical events according to systems showing connections to later Maya traditions. Regional cultures adopting Olmec innovations didn't simply copy, they adapted, modified, and elaborated according to local conditions and cultural preferences. This creative adaptation produced the diversity characterizing classic Maya civilization, the distinctive character of Zapotec culture, the unique features of Central Mexican traditions. Each culture took Olmec foundations and built something new, something distinctively their own, while maintaining recognizable connections to Gulf Coast antecedents. The archaeological record reveals this process clearly. Maya-raised field systems employ Olmec-derived construction techniques adapted to limestone karst environments. Zapotec writing systems use Olmec-derived numerical notation while developing distinctive glyphic elements recording Zapotec language. Teotihuacan's urban planning follows Olmec-derived organizational principles while creating architectural forms and spatial relationships unprecedented in scale and complexity. Understanding Olmec civilization requires looking beyond colossal heads and jade masks to appreciate the integrated systems enabling their achievements. The agricultural innovations creating food, surpluses supporting specialized craftsmen, the trade networks distributing both raw materials and finished goods across vast distances, the religious systems legitimizing political authority while providing shared identity, the technological mastery enabling monumental expression, the organizational capabilities coordinating thousands of individuals in complex, specialized roles. But these interconnected systems working together created civilization capable of achievements that still impress us today. Modern visitors to Venta Archaeological Park walking among reconstructed monuments experience something of the awe these structures must have inspired in ancient visitors. the fluted pyramid rising 34 meters above surrounding landscape. The massive stone heads with their distinctive facial features and elaborate headdresses. The carefully aligned plazas and platforms creating spaces for ceremonial performances. These aren't just impressive ruins, they're evidence of human imagination and capability operating at the highest levels. The jade mosaic mask from Tomb A, displayed in Mexico's National Museum of Anthropology, represents one of ancient America's greatest artistic achievements. Over 200 precisely shaped jade pieces fitted together, creating a supernatural face glowing with inner light. This object embodies everything the Olmecs achieved: technical mastery of difficult materials, artistic sophistication, creating powerful imagery, religious concepts expressed through material culture, and access to resources from across Mesoamerica through extensive trade networks. Recent technological advances continue revealing Olmec achievements. LiDAR mapping, showing extensive settlement patterns previously invisible beneath jungle canopy. Chemical analysis, tracing raw materials to specific geological sources. Ground-penetrating radar, revealing internal structures of pyramids and platforms. Each new technique uncovers additional evidence for Olmec sophistication, complexity, and influence. The underwater archaeology beginning in the Gulf of Mexico promises particularly exciting discoveries. Rising sea levels since the Olmec period mean coastal settlements and harbor facilities now lie beneath several meters of water. Initial investigations suggest sophisticated maritime technologies and coastal trade networks we're only beginning to understand. What other discoveries await beneath Gulf waters? What evidence for long-distance sea trade, shipbuilding technology, and coastal settlement patterns might revolutionize understanding of Olmec civilization? Genetic studies, though currently limited by preservation challenges in tropical environments, hold promise for revealing Olmec population origins and relationships. Where did these people come from originally? How did they relate to contemporary populations in other regions? Did they maintain distinct biological identity or intermarry extensively with neighbors? Future DNA analysis may answer these questions while raising new ones about ancient population movements and cultural transmission mechanisms. The question of Olmec writing remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing mysteries. The glyphic elements appearing on monuments, the bar and dot numerals, the iconographic programs suggesting narrative content, do these represent true writing capable of recording language or more limited symbolic communication? If Olmec symbols constitute writing, their decipherment would transform understanding of political organization, religious beliefs, and historical development. Imagine reading Olmec accounts of important events, understanding their own explanations for religious practices, accessing their records of astronomical observations and calendrical calculations. Computational approaches analyzing patterns in Olmec symbolic usage may reveal systematic linguistic principles underlying visual communication systems. Scholars are applying machine learning algorithms to identify recurring patterns, compositional rules, and contextual associations that might unlock Olmec meanings. The full extent of Olmec cultural influence continues being revealed through discoveries demonstrating connections between Gulf Coast populations and distant regions previously thought outside their interaction sphere. Recent excavations in Honduras, El Salvador, and Costa Rica uncover Olmec-style artifacts and architectural features suggesting their influence extended further south than previously recognized. What other regions felt Olmec impact? How far did their trade networks actually extend? Future investigations in previously unexplored areas may reveal Olmec connections spanning the entire length of Mesoamerica and beyond. Climate reconstruction studies may reveal environmental factors contributing to their rise and decline while providing insights into adaptive strategies and technological innovations. Understanding relationships between climate change, agricultural productivity, and social organization could illuminate how Olmec populations responded to environmental challenges while maintaining cultural traditions across centuries. The application of artificial intelligence to analyze patterns in Olmec art and symbolic systems may reveal previously unrecognized connections and systematic principles, advancing understanding of cultural development and intellectual achievements. These computational approaches can identify subtle patterns in iconographic usage and artistic conventions difficult to detect through traditional analytical methods. Machine learning algorithms examining thousands of Olmec artifacts might discover compositional rules, stylistic evolution, and symbolic associations invisible to human observers working with limited datasets. Educational programs emphasizing Olmec achievements play crucial roles in contemporary Mexican cultural identity. Museum exhibitions throughout Mexico present Olmec innovations in art, technology, and social organization, while connecting their achievements to broader narratives about indigenous cultural sophistication and historical significance. School curricula increasingly include Olmec civilization as foundational to understanding Mexican history, emphasizing their contributions to mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and artistic traditions that influenced all subsequent Mesoamerican cultures. Indigenous communities in Veracruz and Tabasco maintain cultural practices potentially representing continuities with Olmec antecedents. Contemporary Mix and Zoque speakers preserve agricultural techniques, religious concepts, and artistic traditions, showing connections to patterns documented archaeologically at Olmec sites. While direct transmission mechanisms remain difficult to document after 2 millennia, linguistic and cultural analysis suggests possible continuities deserving further investigation. Tourism development at Olmec archaeological sites creates economic opportunities for local communities while raising awareness of cultural heritage. La Venta Archaeological Park attracts thousands of visitors annually, providing educational experiences connecting people to ancient achievements while supporting conservation efforts and community development programs. Economic benefits from cultural tourism encourage local investment in heritage preservation while creating incentives for protecting archaeological resources from looting and development pressures. Conservation challenges facing Olmec sites require ongoing attention and resources. Tropical climate conditions accelerate deterioration of exposed monuments and architectural features. Rising water tables threaten buried structures and artifacts. Agricultural expansion and urban development encroach on archaeological zones. Modern pollution affects stone preservation. Addressing these challenges requires coordinated efforts involving archaeologists, conservators, government agencies, and local communities. International collaboration advances Olmec research through partnerships between Mexican institutions and universities worldwide. Joint excavation projects, training programs, and research initiatives facilitate knowledge exchange while building capacity for heritage management and archaeological investigation. These collaborations ensure Olmec studies benefit from diverse methodological approaches and theoretical perspectives while maintaining Mexican control over cultural heritage resources. Digital documentation creating permanent records of Olmec monuments and sites serves multiple purposes: preservation, creating records before deterioration; research, enabling analysis without physical access; education, providing virtual access for worldwide audiences; and public engagement, making heritage accessible through online platforms and virtual reality experiences. Three-dimensional scanning technology captures detailed surface information, preserving every carved detail and sculptural nuance. Photogrammetry creates accurate models, allowing virtual examination from any angle. Digital archives ensure knowledge survives even if physical monuments deteriorate or are destroyed. Public engagement programs bring Olmec heritage to broader audiences through innovative presentations, combining archaeological evidence with artistic reconstructions. Museums employ immersive exhibits using sound, lighting, and multimedia presentations, helping visitors understand Olmec achievements in context. Documentary films, podcasts, and social media content reach audiences who might never visit archaeological sites or museums, spreading awareness of Olmec contributions to world civilization. Educational initiatives targeting school children create next-generation stewards for cultural heritage while building appreciation for indigenous achievements. Hands-on programs let students experiment with ancient technologies, making pottery using traditional techniques, grinding maize with stone metates, carving soft stone to understand sculptural challenges. These experiential learning opportunities make Olmec civilization tangible and relevant rather than abstract historical knowledge. Research priorities for coming decades will likely focus on understanding Olmec civilization within broader frameworks of cultural complexity, environmental adaptation, and social organization. How did Olmec social hierarchies develop and maintain themselves across centuries? What role did religion play in legitimizing political authority and organizing community labor? How did Olmec populations adapt agricultural and technological systems to changing environmental conditions? Comparative studies examining Olmec achievements alongside contemporary developments in other world regions provide valuable perspectives on universal patterns in cultural evolution. How did Olmec state formation compare to processes occurring in Bronze Age Mediterranean, early Chinese civilizations, or Andean societies? What similarities and differences appear in technological development, artistic expression, religious systems, and political organization across these diverse contexts? Understanding these patterns illuminates fundamental aspects of human, cultural capacity, and historical development. Environmental archaeology, reconstructing ancient landscapes, climate patterns, and resource availability, provides crucial context for understanding Olmec subsistence strategies and settlement patterns. Pollen analysis, revealing past vegetation communities, soil chemistry, documenting agricultural practices, faunal analysis, identifying consumed animal species. These studies create detailed pictures of Olmec environmental relationships and adaptive strategies. How did Olmec populations modify landscapes to suit cultural needs while maintaining ecological sustainability? The raised field systems, canal networks, and forest management practices suggest sophisticated understanding of environmental processes and long-term planning. Bioarchaeological studies examining human skeletal remains provide insights into Olmec health, nutrition, and demography. What diseases affected Olmec populations? How did diet vary across social classes? What was average lifespan? Did men and women engage in different physical activities, leaving distinctive skeletal markers? Isotopic analysis of bone chemistry reveals dietary patterns and migration histories, while dental analysis indicates food processing techniques and health status. These biological studies humanize Olmec civilization, revealing individual lives behind monumental achievements. Experimental archaeology testing hypotheses about ancient technologies provides valuable insights complementing traditional archaeological investigation. Reconstructing obsidian blade production sequences, replicating jade carving techniques, attempting to move multi-ton stone blocks using hypothesized methods. These experiments reveal practical constraints and possibilities that inform interpretation of archaeological evidence. When modern craftsmen spend months failing to replicate Olmec jade carving precision, we gain appreciation for ancient skill levels. When experimental transport operations demonstrate feasibility of moving colossal heads using proposed methods, we confirm logistical capabilities. Theoretical frameworks examining power relationships, gender roles, and social identities within Olmec civilization provide important perspectives, complementing traditional focus on elite achievements and monumental architecture. How did ordinary people experience Olmec civilization? What daily lives did farmers, craftsmen, and laborers lead? How did women participate in economic, religious, and political activities? Addressing these questions requires attention to residential contexts, utilitarian artifacts, and evidence for diverse social roles beyond elite activities dominating monumental art and architecture. Feminist approaches examining gender in Olmec society challenge traditional assumptions about male-dominated political and religious systems. Female figurines displaying elaborate adornment and possible ritual attributes suggest women held important social positions. Burial analysis revealing elite women interred with valuable grave goods indicates some women accessed wealth and status. Understanding gendered division of labor, women's roles in craft production, and female participation in religious activities provides more nuanced pictures of Olmec social organization. Post-colonial perspectives examining how Olmec civilization has been studied, interpreted, and presented raise important questions about archaeological practice and heritage management. How have colonial legacies influenced research priorities and interpretive frameworks? Whose voices shape narratives about Olmec achievements? How can indigenous perspectives inform understanding of Olmec cultural heritage? Addressing these questions requires critical examination of disciplinary history while creating space for diverse interpretive approaches. Indigenous archaeology involving descendant communities in research design, excavation, and interpretation ensures contemporary voices shape understanding of past societies. Collaborative projects respecting indigenous knowledge and cultural protocols while employing rigorous archaeological methods create more inclusive, nuanced understandings of Olmec civilization. As these approaches recognize that academic archaeology represents one knowledge system among many, and that descendant communities possess valid perspectives deserving respectful incorporation into heritage interpretation. Community archaeology engaging local populations in excavation and heritage management creates mutual benefits. Local people gain employment, develop professional skills, and build connections to cultural heritage. Archaeologists gain community support, local knowledge, and sustainable frameworks for long-term research. These partnerships transform archaeology from external extraction of knowledge to collaborative heritage stewardship. The sustainability of archaeological research and heritage management requires long-term commitments extending beyond individual projects or funding cycles. Establishing permanent research facilities, training local professionals, and creating institutional frameworks supporting ongoing investigation ensures continued advancement of Olmec studies. Mexican institutions leading Olmec research demonstrate growing capacity for independent investigation while maintaining international collaborations. University programs training new generations of archaeologists, conservators, and heritage managers ensure expertise continues developing. Research institutes focusing on Olmec civilization create permanent institutional homes supporting long-term investigation. The economic dimensions of cultural heritage, including tourism revenues, educational benefits, and cultural industries, provide tangible justifications for heritage investment while creating challenges requiring careful management. How can archaeological sites accommodate tourist visitation without damaging fragile resources? How can heritage contribute to local economic development while maintaining cultural authenticity? Balancing preservation, access, and economic benefits requires thoughtful planning and community engagement. Cultural industries based on Olmec imagery and heritage create economic opportunities while raising questions about intellectual property and cultural appropriation. When commercial products use Olmec designs, who benefits? How can indigenous communities and source regions ensure fair compensation? What controls prevent trivializing or misrepresenting Olmec cultural heritage? Addressing these questions requires legal frameworks protecting cultural patrimony while enabling appropriate economic use. The global significance of Olmec civilization extends beyond Mesoamerican studies to contribute to broader understanding of human cultural development, social complexity, and technological achievement. Olmec innovations in agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, and monumental architecture represent independent developments comparable to achievements in Old World civilizations, demonstrating universal human capacities for innovation and cultural elaboration. Comparative perspectives examining Olmec civilization alongside contemporary societies in Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, and the Indus Valley illuminate convergent patterns in cultural evolution while highlighting distinctive solutions to universal challenges. How did different societies develop writing, calendars, monumental architecture, and political hierarchies? What environmental factors influenced these developments? What role did trade, warfare, and religious systems play in state formation? As we conclude this journey through Olmec civilization, several fundamental points deserve emphasis. First, the Olmecs weren't simply first, they were foundational, creating integrated systems of agriculture, technology, art, religion, and social organization that provided templates for all subsequent Mesoamerican civilizations. Their innovations in raised field agriculture sustained Maya cities 1,000 years later. Their calendrical systems enabled precise astronomical observations, continuing until the Spanish conquest. Their artistic traditions inspired creativity across 2 millennia. Their urban planning concepts organized complex societies from Teotihuacan to Tenochtitlan. Second, Olmec achievements demonstrate that sophisticated civilization can emerge in tropical lowland environments once dismissed as unsuitable for complex societies. The hydraulic engineering, transforming swamps into productive agricultural landscapes, the organizational capabilities, coordinating monumental construction in challenging conditions, the technological mastery, working with difficult materials. These accomplishments prove that human ingenuity transcends environmental limitations when cultural innovation combines with opportunity. Third, the colossal heads, jade masks, and monumental architecture we admire today represent visible expressions of deeper achievements in intellectual, organizational, and technological domains. The bar and dot mathematics, the astronomical observations, the water management systems, the long-distance trade networks, these less visible innovations, prove equally important to understanding Olmec civilization and its lasting influence. Fourth, Olmec civilization's transformation during the first millennium BC represents not simple collapse, but creative adaptation and cultural transmission. When populations dispersed from traditional heartland areas, they carried knowledge, traditions, and technologies to new regions where innovations continued evolving through regional adaptations. This process created the diversity characterizing classic Mesoamerican civilizations while maintaining recognizable connections to Gulf Coast antecedents. Finally, ongoing research continues revealing Olmec achievements while raising new questions about origins, writing systems, cultural influence, and historical development. LiDAR surveys, chemical analysis, underwater archaeology, genetic studies. Each new approach uncovers evidence for sophistication and complexity we're only beginning to appreciate fully. The Olmec story isn't finished. It's continuously being rewritten as new discoveries emerge. From simple farming villages to sophisticated urban centers, from local craft production to hemispheric trade networks, from basic religious practices to complex cosmological systems. The Olmecs transformed themselves and in doing so, transformed Mesoamerica. Their legacy lives on in Maya hieroglyphs, Aztec chinampas, and Mexican cultural identity, testament to innovations that continue resonating 3,000 years after the first colossal head was carved. Subscribe to Colossus of Empires to explore more ancient civilizations that shaped our world.